everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my Bookish Box mood reader mug today. So I got off work recently and I'm rushing because I have dinner plans, but today's video is going to be my April reading wrap up. I feel like April was a little bit of a craziness because I was planning on reading a lot of things and some of those things did not get read and I read other things. It was a time, okay? Let me just go through it with you. So the first book I read was Blood Bonds by J. Bree. This is book 3 in the the Bonds That Tie series. I really liked the first 2 books in a very strange way. It just like really had me captivated. Book 3 and 4, which I'll get to in a minute, I was not the biggest fan of. It was fine, but I just liked it a little bit less because of the spice that was ramped up in book 3 and 4. I felt like the spice level in book 1 and 2 was kind of the max of where I like it to be. And books 3 and 4, it was jumped up a notch. And so I didn't like that as much, but I do really like the plot and kind of the things that are going on with like the war and just the different things that are facing politically and in this environment with the rebels. So I thought that was cool and I enjoyed that. But this book was not my favorite. Obviously, I can't tell you a lot about it, but the Bonds That Tie series you've heard about me talk about before, but it's essentially you're in a world where people have abilities if they're strong, and if they either don't have abilities or they do. So they're either like regular people or they have abilities, but it's urban, and you will have a bond. So you will have like these people that are meant for you, meant to fall in love with you, you're meant to fall in love with them, and you can do a blood test to find out who that is, and she has 5 of them, and she runs away for unknown reasons to you as you start the book. And they pick up where they find her and they're like bringing her back and everybody's upset because they're like, you left me, and just, you know. So anyway, I didn't like this one as much. I liked the beginning and I liked kind of the progression of the story, but again, the spice was not my thing. But J. Bree is absolutely killing me with cliffhangers, and so I immediately picked up book 4. And Blood Bonds, book 3, I gave 3.5 stars. And then we get to book 4, which is Forced Bonds by J. Bree. And again, I don't like the spice that's in the 3rd and 4th book. And it just really is sad because I really liked, again, the level of spice and the story so much in books 1 and 2 that when I got to 3, I was like disappointed, but there was a cliffhanger, so I was like, okay, let's just go. And then book 4 had a lot of the same feelings of that, and so I was a little disappointed. I think book 5 and 6 are a little bit different, so I have a little bit of hope for that, but this kind of killed my excitement a little bit. These 2 books killed my excitement a little bit of the series because I was really enjoying it and thought I was gonna like blow through it, and then books 3 and 4 kind of drug me down a little bit because they were just different. I do have a little bit of hope still that books 5 and 6 will be better. But her cliffhangers are absolutely brutal, and that's probably why you blow through this series so quickly. And so I'm probably going to pick up book 5 soon, but I didn't have time to do that in April. And I gave Forced Bonds 3 stars, so just like kind of steadily going down at that point. Sorry about that if the frame just changed or something. There was like a glitch I had to figure out. Anyway, the next thing I was able to read was this chunker, Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is a tome. I guess it's not the longest book I own, but it's 800 pages. Where do I start with this? So I did read this. I listened to most of it because it was just easier for my life. I feel like I have a lot of feelings and I have thoughts, but I feel like I can't articulate them well. So this book was fine. It was fine. It was entertaining enough. But truly, there was so much plot of this book that just seems so completely and utterly pointless for how long this book is. Like, I feel like half of this book and the plot is pointless. Like, they're just chasing things and it's literally pointless. And I feel like it doesn't really add that much to the characters. It doesn't add that much to the story. And it was just there to investigate and have as a thing to do, but it didn't really add much to the story, in my opinion. I thought this book was way longer than it needed to be, honestly, and it just it feels like the plot was pointless, like I said 5 times already, and why is that necessary for whatever the plot is going to be in book 3? I don't know. I don't know, I didn't like it that much. It was fine. I liked it. I didn't dislike it. I didn't hate it. But I feel like in book one, the plot's pretty slow, but I get the plot. And you're following it, and I liked the ending, even though it seemed a little bit unrealistic. I was like, that ending was cool, whatever. The plot was ridiculous. I felt like none of it was important. You get to the end, and there's a lot of like action happening, like Sarah J. Maas fashion with her cliffhangers and crazy endings. But the cliffhanger at this ending that I'm sure all of you that have read this freak out about, and it's maybe been spoiled for you because it was kind of spoiled for me. It's both like crazy, like you're like, what is happening? What is happening? And it's just like insane, and you're just really invested and your heart rate's going. But it's also like extremely infuriating to me. And like I said, you're sitting there, you're excited, you're like, oh my gosh, no way. But at the same time, it really annoys me because I don't necessarily want books to become the Marvel Universe. If you know what I'm saying, if you know what I'm referring to, I don't want that. And I really, really don't know how to feel about this series now and all of her books in general and where this is all going. I don't feel right about it. I don't feel like it's a smart move. I don't really understand it unless she can pull it off like super, super well. I don't love the direction it's going. I will of course continue because I have to at this point, I guess. Now I feel like I have to read everything she's written in case she pulls something. You know what I'm saying? Because like I haven't read Throne of Glass, and now I feel like I have to. Even though, well, I've read some of Throne of Glass, but now I feel like I have to read the whole series whether I enjoy it or not because I have to have answers. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I'm gonna continue, but I don't think I liked the ending. I don't think I liked it. We'll see if she can pull it together for me, but I don't think I liked it. I think it's a little too much. I gave it 3.5 stars. It also doesn't help that that's not my favorite series of hers anyway, but anyway. The next book I read that is actually still upstairs, so I'm just gonna hold up the Just Jacket for you, is Bright Heart by Emma Hamm. This is book 2 in the Dragon of Umbra series. I feel like I've mispronounced that series like every time I've talked about it. The first book, you're following a half-elf, half-human, and she is in hiding because the king that rules this is kind of corrupt and evil, and he's a younger king, but he hates all magical creatures and tries to like eradicate them. If he catches you, he'll arrest you, he'll try to kill you. Any excuse he has to kill you, he will. And he has a dragon that is like a dragon shifter. He's a man, but he can shift into a dragon, so he is a dragon. He has him in his service for whatever reason. You don't know if he's serving because he wants to or because he has to, because he's also a magical creature. And he decides he needs a wife, and so he petitions for people to bring brides to him, basically. And there's a bridal competition to see who will become his wife. And she gets involved in this rebellion unwillingly because both sides are kind of sketchy. And she ends up entering into the competition to try to kill the king and take down the kingdom. And gets wrapped up in this dragon bodyguard because he's protecting the king. I fell in love with this series pretty quickly, book 1, because of the dragon character Abraxas. He is like, I know this sounds contradictory every time I say it, but he's like a cinnamon roll, fearsome, crazy dragon. Like, he's such a cinnamon roll character with his emotions and his heart and his like care for things that he loves, whether that's like creatures or a person or whatever, or like romantic or friendship or not. But he's also a dragon, so he will rip you apart to get what he wants or to protect those he loves. So he's just like the coolest character. I love him so much. Every time he comes on page, I'm so happy. Every time I get his perspective, I'm like grinning. I love that character so much. The dragon character is just so well done. A vicious cinnamon roll, if you can believe it, like I've said. But despite his character, I like how the story went more with a travel and quest and then little adventures along the way. I also laughed a few times, which I don't always laugh when I'm reading. I might think something is funny or be like, but like actually laughed along the way. I did that a few times. That was fun. I enjoyed that. This series just kind of makes me happy and it makes me feel things, which is how I know it's a good series for me, even if it's not for you, is when it can get in my emotions and make me kind of happy and giddy. When a book can make me feel like that, I know it's good for me. I really love this and I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm pretty sure there's 5 or 6 books, There might just be 5 books. And I pre-ordered, I have the Bookish Box edition, so I have to wait when Bookish Box comes out with theirs, so I have a matching set. And I did order those, so those should be coming in a few months, but I'm very excited to continue this series, and I love reading about dragons. And I gave it 4.5 stars. And speaking about dragons, the final book that I was able to read in April is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a really cool edition because the first edition of the first printing is these cool sprayed edges with dragons on them, so that's really fun. I did a full review video for this that is already up on my channel, so if you're interested in more in-depth thoughts about that, go check that out. But I absolutely love this book. I received this book as an audiobook from NetGalley in advance before the book released to listen to in exchange for my review, which I did. And I loved this so much. Dragons, a war college, magic, ruthless competition, political schemes. This book was just so much fun, and I'm dying to know what happens in book 2. Dying. It comes out in November. I can't believe it. I don't know how I'm going to survive until then, to be honest. At the time when I finished this, I had no idea when book 2 was coming out, and I immediately looked it up and it was November. So I was very upset that I had no idea when the next book was coming. Somebody told me it was a duology. I have no idea how many books it's going to be. Somebody told me it was a duology. One of you actually commented on the review and said it's set to be like 4 or 5 books, 6 books, something like that, which you're probably correct. I need more of this world ASAP. I'm a little upset, so this is going to be a little bit of a rant and not really my feelings about the book. Well, I guess it is kind of. I saw a video posted today by a booktuber I really love, and it sounds like she really hated this book. And I'm very upset about it. And some of the comments I was seeing on the video, I have to watch it, I haven't watched it yet. Some of the comments I was seeing on the video were saying like, I'm so glad I didn't read this because I don't want a fantasy romance. And I struggle with that because to me, when you're in the fantasy romance genre, people are reading like ACOTAR, which is more comparable to this, or like Laura Thalassa, like the Bargainer series, or I don't know, the Lost Boys that I hate, the Vicious Lost Boys series, or Toledo Crystal Bloom, like a bunch of those. I'll just throw a bunch of fantasy romance. When you think of fantasy romance, that's what you think of. To me, this is more fantasy with romance in it. And I said this in my review, and I would stand by that because I feel like a lot of fantasy romances you get, the plot is pretty sparse and not as big of a deal in the book. Unless you're reading like Bridge Kingdom, the plot's a pretty big part of that, but the romance is also fairly heavy. And I feel like this is more about Violet Sorrengail, who's the main character, surviving in this war college, getting some help, and there is romance involved. But I feel like the romance isn't really involved until later on. And even then, I feel like it's not the focus of this book. It's the enemies, the Griffin Riders, and the war, and training to survive until you can be in battle, until you survive your 3rd year, and then you go into battle. Like, I feel like the romance is not the focus. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say if you've read a lot of fantasy romance, you would say that this is fantasy with romance and not a fantasy romance. Just my opinion, because I like romance if it's done well and it's in fantasy, but some fantasy romances I'm not about because it has too much romance. I feel like this doesn't. So I don't know. I was a little upset about that, and I hope people aren't turned off by that. But I also don't want people to read it thinking there's going to be no romance, because that's not the case. There is romance, so just be aware. But now that I've said that, again, you can go more in depth in my review that I posted, but I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely cannot wait to read more of this world and to find out what happens with the magic and the enemies and the war. I think it's going to be really epic, and I love it. I think, I said this in my review, and I'll give you a little snippet of this. I think this is very similar to Divergent in a lot of ways, and it's very hard to explain unless you read it. But if you liked Divergent, you liked the vibe of the vicious, like military academy, vicious military school, war college, and you like magic and dragons, I think you will like this book. If you hate romance, can't stand any romance, there's romance in it, so maybe it wouldn't be for you, but I would give it a shot if you can stomach it a little bit. Maybe not a make or break for you. If you love fantasy romance, just know that there is plot to this, and this isn't just romance, but there's romance in it. But yeah, just manage your expectations as you go into this, because I know there's a lot of hype around this book now. I wasn't really aware of that until I read it and then posted a review and then saw everybody blowing up about it when it came out. But because there's a lot of hype, there's going to be a lot of expectations you have to manage. So just be aware of that. It's not the best book in the whole wide world. It's not like, I don't know, the author's not perfect. No one is. But I really enjoyed this book. I also really enjoy reading YA, and maybe people that don't like reading YA would think this is more accessible to people that read YA. So also keep that in mind, because this is adult, but I think it reads easier for me, and I enjoy YA still. So if you can't stand YA, be aware of that as well. But again, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Can't wait to continue. Please tell me what you think of this book if you've read it. Good or bad, I don't care. Those were all of the books that I was able to read in April. It feels like I should have been able to read more, but I know I had several things going on in April, and then I was reading a couple longer books, so that's probably why it is cut down a smidge, but still happy about everything I was able to read, even though some of them were hits and some of them were misses. I'm really in a dragon mood right now after reading Brightheart and then Fourth Wing, and I read Fireborn recently. I just want to read everything about dragons, to be honest. But yeah, so that is all of my thoughts and all the books that I was able to read in April. Please comment down below and let me know what you think. If you were shocked by some of my opinions, or you just want to talk to me about my thoughts on these books that I read, I would love to chat with you. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.